Councilor Precourt, Councilor Gay, Councilor Doyle, Councilor Roche, Councilor Minthorn, Councilor Cody, and Councilor Johnston are all present. Councilor Roche has been excused. Family duties in a soccer game, but let's hope it's going to be a successful evening for the family. All right, I'd like to ask the council and the audience to join in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, let me just, under the general item, I'll just present very quickly. Note, last Saturday, we had a very successful swim. I had a great time swimming Saturday morning at the October event, and so did our city manager. And I think Bill was the final. The water's probably cold by the time he got there, poor guy. It was a little warmer in the morning, but it was well attended, and I appreciate the folks who came down, and particularly Rob Biggs and Saco Main Street, and making that a reality. It's a ton of work getting those things done. And in the afternoon, I had the opportunity to recognize someone who spent years, 28 years, in fact, helping scouts in our community. Saturday was was declared as Rosie Day. Rosie McManus has spent 28 years working with Troop 310 as an advancement chair and other positions, and I got an opportunity to recognize her at Troop 310 on Saturday afternoon. And you realize what makes a good community is these folks that spend time and effort, 28 years of time and effort in helping our kids. As a former member of the Scouts, as a tenderfoot, that was it. They asked me to leave, but my son did better. And I was a merit badge counselor for a number of years in the same merit badges that she was involved with, and I know that can be challenging in itself. So it was really a great opportunity to recognize someone in our community who's done tremendous work for us. All right, let's start with the public comment period. My list came to me, I believe. Was there anyone on the list? I don't think anyone signed up on the list. Okay, I seem to have misplaced my list. All right. Next item, there is no consent agenda. This is an out of the norm public meeting. That's why there's probably a little less than normal. First item on the regular agenda is a second and final proposed zoning ordinance amendments pertaining to the shoreline zoning, including Section 504, non-conforming structures. And that was assigned to
Kevin Roach, but he's Council Roach.
All right. Councilman Minthorn, would you like to pick up on that?
Sure. These proposed zoning ordinance amendments would update shoreland zoning guidelines found in Articles 5 and 7.1, consistent with recent amendments approved by the Maine DEP. DEP staff has been asked to review the proposed changes and should have comments by later this month. Formal acceptance of these changes by the DEP Commissioner will occur after council action. The changes are best described as housekeeping and are fairly minor in nature. The Planning Board considered the proposed ordinance amendments at its August 2nd meeting, held a public hearing, received no comments, then made a positive recommendation for passage. Suggested motion: the City of Saco hereby ordains and approves the second and final reading of the document titled Amendments to the Zoning Ordinance, Sections 504-2 and 7-1, dated October 24th, 2016.
Is there a second on the motion?
Second.
All right, before I call for vote on the motion, Mr. Hamlin is not here. Oh, there he is. I knew he was someplace. Now, we were going to do these last week. We were told the DEP had some comments. Are any of the comments that DEP submitted significant enough to involve the Planning Board review, or were they just pretty generic comments with no huge implications?
Very much housekeeping in nature.
Okay. I saw that you bolded and highlighted the ones. Those are the changes proposed by the state, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions on the council? Because those are the changes from what we had last week when we got together.
I got one.
Go ahead.
7.1-3.4, maximum height on structures. Where we're in floodplains or close to floodplains and people are doing these houses on stilts, is the height restriction of 35 like the rest of the city or most of the city adequate for what they're trying to do down there with raising them houses so that they don't have flooding issues?
Yeah, good question. Actually, back in 2009, when we had a lot of significant changes to this section, Councilor, The Department of Environmental Protection recognized at that time, just that type situation coming up time and again. For the sake of a structure, the owner may want to lift it a foot, 2 feet, 3 feet, and have more leeway beneath the structure for tidal waters to move through. There is the ability on the code enforcement officer's part to forgive that. So a structure can be raised up, and if part of the raising leads to the peak of that roof exceeding 35 feet, that can be forgiven, if you will.
I was just curious because, like I said, I know there is some plans or some people that are trying to do stuff in Camp Alice, and if that height restriction is going to limit them for, if they're building like wash-throughs or whatever, like they have been,
Yep.
putting them up on stilts, that, they don't have to sacrifice the living space in the structures because, like I said, they are condensed units that are being put down there or trying to be put down there. So I was just curious if that 35 was cast in stone and that we wouldn't, or would they have to come before us to change that?
Nope, no need to. Dick Lambert and his office would deal with that, and I'm sure be in touch with the DEP as needed.
Yeah.
But yep.
Even on new construction?
That is a good question.
Estimate, Counselor, that if he went down and looked, is from the 35-foot measurement is from the bottom of the project, not from the bottom of the ground. Because the two projects going on down there are 2.5-story buildings on raised piers.
Yeah.
So my guess is it's probably 35 feet above where you lift them up 4 feet, whatever, and the 35 feet starts at that point. Otherwise, it'd be 40-foot buildings.
Yeah, and that's what I'm not sure what the. Cause
Well, it's a good question.
I think by most standards, the 35 feet is from ground level,
Yeah.
not from where they lifted or whatever to get out of the floodplain or flood issues.
Yeah, existing grade, and actually there's a change in here that talks a little bit about where that 35 feet shall be measured from. But, Counselor, it's not necessarily my issue as much as code enforcement to talk to. I'm going to say that new construction would have a more difficult time going above that 35 feet than would an existing house that the owner is looking to raise up.
Yeah.
But I'll confirm that and get back to you tomorrow.
Okay. Now, are these all DEP standards or are these our codes that we're establishing?
No, it's our code, but it's being amended per DEP periodic updates. Every 4, 5, 6 years, we see a small batch of amendments. And actually, if you looked at the state's model ordinance compared to the city's ordinance, ours is probably half the length. But the department fully expects that town by city, we will revise this thing so that it works in Saco. So this wouldn't necessarily travel over to Biddeford very well, but it works well in Saco.
Okay.
But all these changes are straight from the DEP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions? Okay, hearing no other questions, call for a vote on the motion. Counsel Precourt?
Yes.
Counselor Gay?
Yes.
Counselor Doyle?
Yes.
Counselor Minthorn?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
And Counselor Johnston?
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes.
Thank you.
Bob. Next item on the agenda is the first reading of school revolving renovation fund loan forgiveness grant financing, what we just discussed in workshop, and that's Counselor Doyle.
Thank you. On January 29, 2016, Saco Public Schools obtained approval from the Maine Department of Education for a school revolving renovation fund project for health, safety, and compliance repairs to the Saco Middle School. That approval offered the city a 0% interest 5-year loan in the principal amount of up to $20,294 to finance the project, but of which $8,572 of principal has been forgiven the grant financing. To obtain the grant financing, the city must enter into a loan agreement with the bond bank for the unforgiven $11,722 portion of the loan and must evidence that borrowed principal with the general obligation securities bonds. However, because Saco Public Schools has already prepaid the $11,722 portion of the loan, the bond bank agrees that the bonds are paid and satisfied, and will so indicate on the bonds. Please refer to the attached exhibits, include the order to authorize a school revolving renovation fund loan forgiveness grant financing for further details. City staff recommends that the City Council adopt the order authorizing the school revolving renovation fund loan forgiveness grant financing as drafted by Drummond Woodson. The City of Saco hereby approves the first reading of the document titled Order to Authorize School Revolving Renovation Fund Loan Forgiveness Grant Financing for Health, Safety, and Compliance Repairs to Saco Middle School, dated October 24, 2016, and further moves to schedule a public hearing and final vote for November 7th, 2016.
There a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Counsel Johnston?
Yes.
Counsel Cody? Yes. Counsel Minthorn?
Yes.
Counsel Doyle?
Yes.
Counsel Gay?
Yes.
Counsel Precourt?
Yes.
So the motion passes. Last item on the agenda is authorize the creation of an ad hoc comprehensive plan update committee and confirm the mayor's appointments. Counsel Minthorn.
One of the goals adopted by the Saco City Council this calendar year is to review the comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance for discrepancies, assimilate the Bridge 2025 document, and make recommendations for changes to the document for the next calendar year. The city has contracted with the Southern Maine Planning and Development Commission, SMPDC, to facilitate a Saco Comprehensive Plan Review / Update Committee. The committee appointed by the mayor will consist of 11 voting members. On the city council, Nathan Johnson and David Precourt. Planning board, Neil Schuster and Don Gerard. Economic Development Commission, Betty Brunswick and Andrew Goldberg. 5 members of the public, Alyssa Boutha, Peg Poulin, Rick Millard, Tim Leary, and Sandra Gay. 2 staff members will also be present to assist but not be voting members. Bob Hamlin, City Planner, Bill Mann, Economic Development Director. Be it ordered that the City Council authorize the creation of an ad hoc comprehensive plan update committee and confirm the mayor's appointments to the ad hoc comprehensive plan committee. I move to approve the order.
There a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? Counsel Johnston?
The last meeting, I think it was Councilor Cody that asked what the cost of the
Nathan? Thank you.
last meeting. I think it was Councilor Cody that asked about the cost of contracting with SMPDC.
Yep. It's going to come to about $20,000.
Just curious.
Yep.
20.
Where's that funding coming from, I guess?
We're going to pay for it out of some TIF fund balances we still have.
Other questions?
Why do you need to spend $20,000?
I can't do it in-house. I don't have the time or the staff resources to do it. We spent significantly more for the last time we looked at the comprehensive plan. In fact, with the private firms, SMPDC is a regional organization that is through the state, so we get quite a discount. In fact, I believe we're going to get more in value because we're getting grants and some state financing through this to make it only $20,000 through SMPDC. When we did this last time, I think we spent close to $70,000 as the last count I have.
Comprehensive plan. Pretty comprehensive. All right. Any other questions from the councilors? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. Council Johnston?
Yes.
Council Cody?
Yes.
Council Minthorn?
Yes.
Council Doyle?
Yes.
Council Gay?
Yes.
Council Precourt?
Yes.
6-0, the motion passes. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind individuals who are here or watching us on TV that there is still opportunity for absentee balloting. I guess absentee balloting will end November 3rd, correct? And I would encourage you, if you feel so motivated, it's probably well worth considering absentee balloting because on November 8th, we'll all be together on Franklin Street, which can be at times somewhat a little bit challenging at times. So if the opportunity arises, I strongly encourage you to consider absentee balloting. That being said, I'd like to ask for motion to... Oh, go ahead, Councilor Cody. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Council discussion. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, Michelle said we're up to roughly 2,500 absentee voters so far.
So far, yeah.
Yes.
We'd like to get 5.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to get to 5.
It's been busy up here.
That's good. We want it busy because I can guarantee you November 8th on Franklin Street, it'll be busy. Haven't been there many times. So if the opportunity arises, people should exercise that opportunity. Other council questions or comments? Apologize about that, guy.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Does anybody know the status on the school on the Simpson Road?
On the what?
Ecology School on the Simpson Road.
No. Not heard a thing.
I spoke with Drew about 2 weeks ago, and they're continuing to move forward with their fundraising. They have a ways to go to hit their goal, but not too far out. They're working on some development things, some curriculum things with the schools, expanding their programs, and that to encompass the new property and that type of thing.
Thank you, Councilman Thon.
Yep.
Other questions or comments from the council? Go ahead, Councilor Cody.
We discussed briefly one night, instead of having a budget every year, have a budget every 2 years. And I just asked the city administrator a question about the $20,000. Why we got to pay $20,000? And he said we're short of staff, yeah, which I understand. And I know at the federal level, they're considering going to a budget every 2 years versus every year, and about half the state of Maine budget is every 2 years versus every year. And when I think back on budget time of how much money and time and staff time we spend on the budget process, and most of it is pretty plain. You have a police department, you need so many police officers, you get a police station, you get cars, you get gas. And yet I got a list of stuff that constituents to complain to me about, and a budget time we don't have time to get to it. We'll get to it later, and the little items I like to attend to don't get attended to. And my suggestion is that we consider, instead of spending all the staff time with the budget every year, that we do it every 2 years. I'm just curious what other people thought about it. I know Kevin told me that in New York, that you were involved in that in New York.
We've had discussions about that in every community I've worked in. The hardest part is would require a charter change, but that can be part of the discussion when this group is ready to start tackling that.
Well, I think Roger brought this up earlier on, or Eric, and we put it off saying it would take some work for you to put that together, but that is something we don't want to lose sight of because we have talked about it in the past, and I know you mentioned it would be a fair amount of work to look at that, but we don't want to.
No.
When we go through our budgeting, we should be considering how to do what we're doing next spring every 2 years instead of every year.
That can be part. I think while we get through next year's budget, we're also starting that conversation about potential changes to the charter for next November,
Okay.
which could incorporate looking at a 2-year budget process.
Okay. We probably should do as part of the budgeting process to see what portions of that budget. You could theoretically have a 2-year budget for most of it, and you may have a 1-year budget for things that change dramatically every year. Who knows? There are many ways of looking at it. But it's certainly something worth considering.
I was curious what the other councilors thought about it. Now you've been through a couple budget sessions.
I think it's a good idea on certain.
I think it's a lousy idea. I think we have to toe the line every time we come through this process. And I think we have to look at everything from year to year. It's just, I don't think we need to be stretching this out for 2 years.
Oh, we can talk about, I think there are ways to do a little of both, actually. If we were going to do every 2 years, though, it would have to follow the election cycle as well. I don't think it'd be appropriate for me to set the budget for the next mayor or the next council.
But there again, you get a new council that comes in, and they're not familiar with the budget process unless their first seating is right in budget season.
That would be it. They would come in December and start.
Are they going to be making wise decisions? Are they going to have the knowledge to make the wise decisions for the city for a 2-year plan? And then probably, if they're not there for the next, then you may end up with new seats again. I think
Would
it's.
have had the knowledge because they decided to run and they.
Well, it's a learning curve for every one of us, and I've been here 3 years, and I'm still learning. So.
It never stops. Learning never stops.
So that's
Yes.
why I would recommend if you were to look to do a 2-year budget process, you also look to change the re-election of councilors to a 4-year term rather than a 2-year term. So
3-year
those are all
stagger.
things that should be
That's
talked about.
huge. That's
as-
a big change, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
The other thing might be
I agree
also, when we're talking about changing the term of counselors, I think the other thing we should also consider is staggering the wards so they don't occur in the same cycle, and split it some way, evens and odds or something like that.
But then you tend to get a strong, if there's people that have been there for a while and they kind of overrule the new people that come in because there's
Yes, you did.
thank you.
You're more than welcome.
Well,
I have the
haven't,
House over here and the Senate over there. How's that?
haven't we done that with the school board now?
They
Staggering.
rotated the elections by evens and odds and
But they're staggered terms, right?
yeah,
Like there's
staggered
not.
terms and
Yeah, I think they
length
are.
of terms.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Okay, anything else? Any other discussion for the council? This is
I
just
hope we
general
can-
discussion.
I hope we can bring up the charter in
What about?
January and start looking at that
You
process.
would like to speak? Oh, what about the
police and
finance
fire
committee?
talk.
Yes, okay. Yes, Nathan.
Do we have any update on the possibility of forming a finance committee? I think we had discussed that previously.
The insurance committee's been.
No, the finance.
Finance Committee.
That hasn't been brought up this year at all.
Probably the previous council then.
That would be something the council would have to decide, and I'll be honest with you, that has enormous implications. I think we would want to look at that as the whole structure of the operation.
Another
I
thing
have,
for
I have
the
a capital project, or I have a capital program, or capital program committee I established last year. It'll come back. I think we're working on all of the asset stuff and having that group meet next month anyway. So
Who's on that committee, if you don't mind me asking?
I believe, David, you and Roger were on that.
Because we never met.
Roger met. Roger was there at the in December, last year in December. We met. David, you weren't able to make it. We met twice.
Oh, really?
Yep. I think we'll try to do that again this year.
maybe
I'll
we
bring
should.
something. I'll be bringing something to the group to discuss in November. Pat's been working on something.
Maybe if we entertain the idea of revising the charter starting in January, maybe one of the things we should look at is saying, okay, what are community-wide, nationwide best practices? How are they reconfiguring towns, leadership to be more effective, et cetera? And not that I'm proposing anything at all, but, maybe we should at least look at that as part of this overall process to see if there may be a better way than the tried and true that's been in the charter for countless decades.
Okay.
Anything else, councilors? All right, I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. Good night. And don't forget to vote.
Already
Do
did.
it right now?
Already did.
Did your
Oh, yeah.
absentee.